Hi, it's Lacy Estelle with An ADD Woman podcast. And today I'm going to talk about lying. This is something that's been coming up in a lot of my groups that I'm a part of, as well as my life. And I thought, well, this seems to be relevant, so let's talk about it. Welcome to An ADD Woman podcast. I'm your host, Lacy Estelle, writer of all things about ADHD parenting and being an ADHD mother on Mothering the Storm with Lacy Estelle at lacyestelle.com. Here on An ADD Woman podcast, we're going to switch it up and talk about all things to do with ADHD as an adult woman and how we deal with it. Now you might be thinking, ADHD, women don't really have that. Actually, we do. We've all just been doing such a great job for years of masking it. So let's dive in. Let's talk about everything that our ADHD touches in our lives. And when I say everything, I mean everything. There is not one thing when you have ADHD that it doesn't affect. I'm so glad you're here. And if nothing else, I hope that you take away from this that you are not alone, you are not a failure, you are not lazy, and you are not stupid, and you are definitely not crazy. You just have ADHD, and you're just like me. Hey friends, have you heard of a program called Motion? I recently started using it. As a person who has ADHD, it is the best task manager I have found for the ADHD brain. It actually integrates directly with my Google Calendar. It allows for me to schedule things based on the deadlines that I need to set for them. And then it actually will schedule those tasks for me in a way that I can move them around as needed. And then if I have something come up and I need to take a break from what I'm doing, I can add that on there and it will just automatically redirect my other tasks to either the next day or it'll let me know that they're going to be past due. It is like having a virtual assistant with actually having a virtual assistant to reschedule my tasks daily for me based on when they're due, how long they're going to take, and how fast I need to get them done. So it's phenomenal. I love it. And you should definitely check it out. I will link to it in this podcast. And if you use my link, you can get a free 2-week trial rather than just the 1-week trial. And it's totally worth it. It only took me 7 days to know that I really loved it and needed it, and it would make my life a whole lot easier. So thanks, guys. Check it out. So the first point I want to make is I am not on this podcast to judge you. That's not what I'm here for. And obviously, I don't know you personally to be able to judge your life or tell you, how to deal with the relationships in your life. And I do plan to do a podcast here in the near future to talk about relationships and how ADHD affects our relationships. And I'm probably going to do quite a few episodes on it because I feel like it is the primary hinge for our lives. Our lives are made up of relationships and relational aspects of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So why did I choose to talk about lying first? Well, first of all, lying is something that a lot of ADHD people struggle with massively. And it is something that I hear parents over and over again say, my kid lies, I don't know how to get him to stop lying. This podcast is for ADHD women specifically, but maybe even you yourself are like me and you catch yourself lying about stupid stuff. Like, even as an adult woman, it has taken me quite some time to rewrite the habits that I've created from a lifetime of having ADHD, having it go undiagnosed, and then also not really truly understanding why I always felt inclined to lie about silly things. So I want to get into this because I'm sure that it's affecting you. And even if it's not affecting you per se, there's going to be things that I talk about and points that I make in this episode that you'll probably be like, maybe that's why so-and-so doesn't always tell me the truth fully, or maybe that's why I feel inclined to fib to my boss. Or maybe that's why I lie to myself. So lying and ADHD. Why do ADHD people lie? And more importantly, how do we stop lying? First and foremost, I think one of the basic, most general reasons, and you can actually look at this from a biological standpoint, our brains are set up to be impulsive. Generally speaking, our prefrontal cortex is not as developed as our peers, or it is developing at a much slower rate if it is still developing. And because of that, we are inclined to be impulsive. We're inclined to be basically predisposed to having impulsive habits. Adrenaline junkies, we tend to think in the moment, and we don't always think long term. And so we're impulsive by nature. And if we are impulsive and we've also grown up, which brings me to my next point, we've all grown up in a household that was mostly or most likely to also have ADHD, okay? And I'm talking parents here. If you didn't know, ADHD is highly genetic. If even just one parent has it, there's a 50% chance that the child will develop it or have it. And if both parents have it, and even if one parent has it very well managed and the other parent has it as well and doesn't have it very well managed, but they still both have it, the child is likely to have ADHD at a 90% rate. So that's huge. When you grow up in a household with ADHD and nobody knows that everybody has ADHD, you get a lot of yelling. And if you don't get a lot of yelling, you get a lot of knee-jerk reactions. Or you might even have parents who chose really poor coping mechanisms that derailed all the rest of their relationships in their lives, like alcoholism or drug abuse or impulsive spending. Maybe they even lack to take care of themselves, which I find often with ADHD people because we are so prone to struggle with household chores and household work and just overall behaviors and aligning ourselves with goals and working towards growth. It's not something we're natural at. We have to become extremely self-aware to try to override those things in our lives. And then a lot of times it takes us way longer than most of the time it would take our peers. But I'm getting off track. So my point is, most of us have grown up in a household where we've learned that if we lie about it, we can protect ourselves. But here's the thing. Ultimately, when you do this or you do these behaviors, two things. Whatever reason you started to have this behavior, maybe as a child, was in an effort to protect yourself. My guess is it was in an effort to protect yourself from being ridiculed, being yelled at, being punished. You know, a lot of teenagers, hey, was there drinking going on at that party? No, Mom. No, nobody was doing anything wrong. So we're inclined to lie. And as ADHD people, what happens is when we lie, we realize, especially when we're young, we realize, oh, that was easy. And because our ADHD brains are already predisposed to want to take the path of least resistance, even if that path is not the best one for us, we will set ourselves up to spend our teenage years and our young adult years thinking that lying is the easiest answer, so I'm gonna go with it. We also don't take time to pause. And this is something I was actually just talking to a friend of mine who also has ADHD, and we were talking about how there's such a misconception with like medication, okay? People think, oh, medication's gonna make me a zombie, or medication's gonna make me feel weird, or I associate ADHD medications with getting high. Understandable, there is a lot of abuse of ADHD medications, but it actually, when you use medication in its therapeutic dose, what it gives you as an ADHD impulsive person is pause. It gives you a moment to take a breath and think about your next move. And that's it. It really doesn't do anything for you that makes you different than who you already are. Trust me, I still don't want to do the dishes, and I still don't want to do laundry. But my medication helps my brain to say, yeah, but we have to. so let's just go get it done. Or my brain also will allow for me to actually introspect, where I can say, I think I'm kind of irritable today. So it'd probably be best to just not say what's on my mind right away. When I don't have that, I don't have the pause. I just immediately either blow up or I say something stupid or I lie. Why? Well, one, because I'm human, but two, because if I don't have my impulsive nature in check, then I gravitate to the habits that I built as a kid. And those habits were definitely in an effort to protect my emotions and to protect my sense of urgency and my sense of danger. And why do I say it like that? Because there's a part of you, okay, when you get asked on the spot, hey, did you get the dishes done? Or my mom used to come home and she would ask, hey, did you vacuum? Yeah, I did. I totally did not vacuum. Now, my mom was really, really good at picking up on times that I was lying. And so she would look and she'd be like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. There's no vacuum streaks. The vacuum's still sitting exactly where I had it. You didn't vacuum. Why did you lie to me? I don't know. As a teenager, I really didn't know. But it came down to the fact that I knew I didn't do the thing she asked me to. She's putting me on the spot and asking me if I did it. The easiest way out here is probably to just say I did in hopes that she believes me. And yeah, and then problem solved, because I still didn't have to do what she asked me to do. And I don't have to make anybody mad. I don't have to disappoint anyone. But the problem actually comes later. So one of the things I've noticed recently with my ADHD son is that if the consequence comes later, it's not relevant to him right now. So we've tried just to go off on a tangent a little bit to help you understand how the ADHD brain works when it comes to natural consequences. So I pride myself on being a natural consequence parent. But what I notice is the ADHD brain does not seem to recognize consequences if they're going to be later than right now, which is so silly, right? Because consequences that happen right now are kind of rare. You decide that you're going to go out drinking before you're of age and do stupid things. You think to yourself, oh, well, that's no big deal because I only did it once. You don't see or realize the progression that can happen to you, right? So I realized not too long ago that long-term consequences for him don't work. Not necessarily that they don't work, but he just doesn't feel it. And he doesn't have that sense of urgency to do what he needs to do in the moment to make that not transpire. Because it's not happening right now. So it's not happening at all to his ADHD brain. So we've tried a myriad of things for him to try to help him wake up earlier in the morning. And he is just not good at it. And it's part of having ADHD. A lot of parents struggle with their kids in the morning with ADHD. They just can't get up. They can't get out of bed. I think it may have to do with a regulation issue. I think that because we struggle to regulate our own behaviors, it seems natural that we would probably struggle to regulate our sleep. And I'm sure if I went digging, I could find a study that might talk somewhat about that. But not to get into technical details, but we've tried several things for him. He has an alarm app on his phone that was working really, really great for about 30 days. And then he figured out a way around it. What I also find is even in my own ADHD experience, I sometimes am so tired in the morning. I can get up, I can walk over, turn off my alarm and everything. I'm out of bed. And a lot of people say, oh, you just have to get yourself out of bed and it will wake you up. Nope. I will walk right back to bed, lay down, go right back to sleep. So we also have tried, waking him up early, having him take his medication an hour before he actually has to get up in an effort to help his medication kind of kick in and give him that jump start that he needs. But he's really at a point where he's wanting to utilize medication less and less, which is understandable. I say all of that because for a while it became, okay, if you don't get up on time to be to school on time, then you don't get to have a friend over this weekend. And at first he was like, okay, I'll be on time. It lasted for like a day. Now, we stuck to the consequences. He begged and pleaded, come Friday, please, 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 let my friend come over, let my friend come over. No, sorry, you weren't on time to school all week. Consequences are consequences, right? But the problem wasn't actually solved. Do you get what I'm saying? Because in the situation, what I wanted was for him to be on time. And even though I stuck to my guns and he didn't get to have a friend over, it still wasn't making him be on time. So I changed it up. And instead I said, all right, here's the deal. Your hair seems to be super important to you. He's a 13-year-old boy. Of course it is. So I said, if you wake up late in the morning, you don't have time to do your hair. So you don't get to. Well, let me tell you, that got him moving. He only had one day of waking up somewhat late, and I told him we can still be on time, but you have to only put two curls in your hair. Because yeah, I kid you not, my 13-year-old son is curling his hair in the morning for the specific style that all the boys have, whatever. So I said, you only have, time to put 2 curls in your hair. And he moved. And what I also realized is, that's a natural consequence of not waking up on time. Because when I became an adult, I realized that if I didn't wake up on time, I didn't have time to do my hair either. I had to pull it up in a hair tie, or I had to braid it, or I had to do it once I got to work. So even though that was kind of a situation where I was like, how do we help him? And I had to move the consequence up faster. When you have ADHD and you're given an opportunity to lie, the consequence doesn't happen right away. Now, sometimes it does. Sometimes your boss comes to you and says, hey, did you get that thing done or whatever? And you're on the spot, you feel the pressure and you're impulsive and you go, yeah, I'm finishing up in just a couple minutes. And you know as well as I do that you haven't even started on it. Sometimes your boss will say, okay, great. Well, just bring it to me when you're done. And then you feel like, cool, buys me 25 minutes to hurry up and cram and get it completed. But sometimes your boss will say, cool, can I see it? And then you have to go, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then in the spur of the moment, you're figuring out either other ways to lie, like, I don't know where I saved it. I don't know what happened. Or you immediately have to confess. I said that I got it done, but I really haven't even started. Well, now you look foolish. You look inconsiderate because you lied in the first place, and you look dishonest. And I'm pretty sure if you're listening to my podcast at this moment, you're realizing that some of the things about your ADHD that make you look that way, you don't like. So how do we change it? First of all, you have to get out of denial. You have to get out of denial that lying is saving you from anything, because it's not. And we've realized that at this point, right? If you're listening to this, I would imagine that you're probably an adult. You're probably an adult woman. I always assume that you're probably navigating your 20s, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're navigating your 30s or your 40s or whatever, and you're just realizing, oh my gosh, I have ADHD and I've had it my whole life and I didn't realize it. And maybe you might be in your 40s and thinking, I know, and I have been a liar like my whole life. Why? Why do I do that? Well, first of all, you have to get out of denial that the lying is not causing you problems. It is. Do you see them right away? No, probably not. But it is, because there's always times where you either have to recall that information that you lied about that doesn't actually stick in your memory because you didn't actually do it. And then on top of that, as an ADHD person, we have a really crappy working memory. So if you can't even sometimes remember what actually did happen or what you actually did do, you're really not going to remember what you didn't do and what you lied about. It just doesn't stand out to you. So you have to get out of denial that this is causing you a problem. Lying is an issue. Long term, it causes problems. It causes problems in your relationship. It causes problems in your self-awareness. Causes problems in your work environment. Causes problems, period. Now that we've established that it definitely causes problems regardless of when it takes place and regardless of when those problems catch up to us, we can then move forward and say, okay, this is a problem that I have. How do I fix it? First of all, why are you lying? What moments of your life are you lying? Are you lying when your husband asks you if you washed his favorite shirt? Are you lying when somebody asks you if you've stuck to your diet? Are you lying when you call the doctor's office and you say, yeah, my car broke down, so I can't make the doctor's appointment. But really your car didn't break down. You just woke up late. There are moments when you're lying, and there are moments when you lied in your youth that were because you had some sort of perceived danger. And that danger, even though it wasn't going to actually harm you physically, and I apologize because if you're listening to this and you are a abuse victim, then sometimes that danger was very real. Sometimes the onslaught of emotional damage or emotional abuse that you were trying to protect yourself from was very real. But here's the other thing, is if you're still here now, that emotional damage or that abuse or whatever you sustained, even if it was just a simple matter of you had a parent who was loud, who liked to yell, who got angry over small things, it didn't kill you. And so it was just a perceived danger. It wasn't a real one. Now, again, like I said, if you were an actual abuse victim, it was a real danger. And that's a whole different ball game and parameter of trying to rewrite your trauma habits, okay? But if you have ADHD and you had a short-tempered parent who was impatient and had no tolerance for your wacky silliness and your inability to sit still and you're wanting to move around all the time, well, then you learn to protect yourself from having to deal with their disappointment and their anger. And you do that by lying. But you're an adult now. And unless you go and meet a serial killer on the street, lying is now no longer going to actually protect you. In fact, it probably didn't even protect you as a kid, but it seemed to in the moment sometimes. But as an adult, it doesn't. And here's why it doesn't. It doesn't protect you because it doesn't actually fix the problem. Lying always seems like an easy button, right? Like, oh, I didn't get this done. I have ADHD. I need to get that done. I'll work on it right this second. So I'm just going to lie and say that I worked on it a little bit, but I didn't. Or I'm going to lie and say that I've been doing great on my diet, even though I've been derailed the last 2 days. Lying gives you another opportunity to lie again. And that next time is actually to yourself. Because you do the lie, and then a lot of times you'll say, oh, cool, I'm off the hook. But you're not. You're not off the hook. You still have to do whatever it is you said you were going to do. And then if you don't do whatever you said you were going to do, now you've lied to this person. They think that everything's kosher. And if you're struggling, you're not going to reach out for help because you can't tell them the truth because you know you just lied. Now, here's the simple part. To stop lying, you have to make yourself tell the truth the moment you start lying. The moment that your husband comes home and says, hey, were you able to call the doctor today? Regardless of his reaction, if you didn't do it, you have to say, oh no, I forgot. I'll call them right now. Or I'll write a note to call them first thing in the morning. Now, when you have ADHD, you are prone to forgetfulness, and you're also prone to struggle to stay long-term with habit. So it's common for the people that care about you to get frustrated with the fact that you don't remember things, or you can't seem to stick to things, or you're prone to being tired all the time, and so therefore you don't get as much housework done. All those types of things make you look like you're careless, but you're not, and you know that you're not. But the truth is, sometimes you need a little help. And if you're lying about how much help you actually need, you never get the help. It all just becomes all-encompassing, all overwhelming, all too much. And then here you are, finally you're like, I need help. And the people who love and care about you, who genuinely love and care about you, are like, you never told me. You never told me that this is too much for you. You never said. I never saw it. You always seemed like you had it all together. Well, guess what? Nobody has it all together. So lying about having it all together is not helping anybody, especially not you. You have to actually set your pride aside, because that's the next point that I'm coming to. One of the other reasons that we lie is because we're prideful. We don't want to admit that we screwed it up. We don't want to say, yeah, I didn't get that done. We don't want to be that person that people look at us and say, oh yeah, she never remembers to do anything. Or, oh yeah, I could count on you to forget. Why? Because as a woman with ADHD, we are highly emotional. Emotional dysregulation is totally a part of ADHD. And what I'm finding more and more is that women with ADHD are more prone to talk about the emotional aspect of it than they are the focus aspect of it. When you have a boy who can't focus in school, but he's not really emotional outwardly, he can still kind of hold back his tears. He's disappointed outwardly. Sometimes he's angry as angry outbursts. It doesn't look the same as ADHD presents in women. When a woman has ADHD, or at least most of the women that I've met who have ADHD, we're impulsive by nature, but also we're super, super introspective, which means that when we disappoint people, or when we feel like we're being rejected by that person, or when we feel like we're being attacked, oh my gosh, it's all encompassing and it's so overwhelming, and it makes it so difficult to make any decisions going forward, to do anything without this constant fear of the people around you rejecting you. So we lie to create this bubble. And then we develop anxiety in an effort to try to deal with the things we lie about, because clearly our brain is failing us. But we don't reach out. We don't say, okay, you know what? This is too much for me right now, and I need help. Why? Because we're prideful. Because we're sitting there telling ourselves, we can do it. Regardless of how our brain is, we can do it. Now, guess what? You can do it, but you still need help to do it. And that's okay. Nobody really does anything completely on their own. And if you read the definition of narcissism, and I'm not saying that we're narcissists, but if you read the definition of narcissism, it basically says in there that the person has such a grand ideology of themselves and their own importance and their accomplishment. One of the first things I know people notice when they watch like award ceremonies, Grammys or music awards or anything along those lines is, who do they thank when they get up there? You know, these are people that have passed large milestones in their success, in their careers, in their life. You know, from the outside looking in, they look like, wow, you did it. You accomplished it. You got there. And then they open their mouths, and some of them do what I would do and they thank God. But most of them, even after they've said that, they go on to thank their producers, their managers, their parents, their brothers and sisters, their friends, their fans, all of them. And why? Because they know they did not accomplish their large accomplishments without all those people. Because you need accountability. You need accountability even if you don't have ADHD. Because it's just how we are. So when somebody asks you, hey, did you get blah, 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 blah done? They're not saying it like they were when you were a kid, where they're waiting for you to say that you didn't so that they can attack you for not getting things done. And I say attack, okay, I'm saying it very lightly. My mom would get angry. Why? Because I totally said I would do something and then I didn't do it. As an adult, that kind of behavior drives me nuts. When I have relationships with people and they tell me they're going to do something for me and they don't, I'm like, do you even care? And then if I were to say, hey, you said you were going to do this for me, and they said, oh yeah, I did, but you just, I forgot to give it to you or whatever, and they lie about it, then I'm sitting there going, wow, you must really think I'm stupid. Do you get how that dynamic plays a role in everything? So if you have ADHD and you're a liar, regardless of your ADHD. It's not your ADHD's fault, because you have the ability to reflect. You have the ability to say, okay, I don't like this habit of mine, so how can I stop it? Well, like I said, the only way to stop doing this is when the opportunity arises, even if the lie leaves your lips. the first thing you do as fast as you can is, I'm so sorry. You know what? I don't even know why I said that. I don't know why I lied about that. I just felt anxious. So I need to tell you the truth. And the truth is blah, 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 blah. And guess what? Most of the time, people who know you and care about you will go, oh, well, I appreciate you telling me the truth. Why did you lie? And a lot of times you'll go, I don't even know, but it's something I'm working on. And so, I just want to tell you the truth. And then if it's something where they're like, okay, so you haven't got that thing done, or you didn't do the thing that you said you were going to do, and why not? And that's when you say, I think I'm struggling with accomplishing that, and I don't really know how to help myself. Do you have any insight? Do you have any insight? Because here's the thing. When you start to reflect on yourself and your habits and the things that you've done, you only are getting one perspective. And it's really, really important to be willing to let yourself be vulnerable and ask other people, hey, I do this thing and I don't know why I do it. Do you have any guesses? Because I can tell you, when I was in my drinking days, when I was in my days of I'm just doing whatever I want and this is fun, I really wish somebody would have told me, I noticed that you seem to just be doing this because you think it's the only way to enjoy yourself, or you think that it's the only way you'll be able to maintain any sort of friendships because everybody's doing that. And that's what fun is to everybody else. But is it really fun to you? And when I thought about that, I was like, it's never really brought anything good to my life. So I don't think I really want to do it anymore. I definitely don't want to go to the bars. So nowadays I have like a glass of wine with my husband once or twice out of the month. You have to be willing to let people see you and then tell you what they see. And if you're going to admit to them, hey, listen, I've been lying, you have to let the chips fall where they may. And sometimes people are going to give you back the hurt that you experienced as a child when you tell them the truth. When you go to them and you say, listen, I've been unfaithful in our relationship and I don't know why. Rather than breaking it off with you, I have been going behind your back and cheating on you emotionally or cheating on you physically. And I'm sorry. First of all, you will sit there and your ADHD may tell you you need to defend yourself because it's painful. It's painful, first of all, to know that you're hurting somebody because you lied to them, but it's even more painful to have to sit there and realize that the situation you're now in is nobody's fault but your own. And some people can't sit with that. And the ones that can't, they don't grow. They're prideful and they're arrogant and they believe that they're justified in everything that they do, even if the things that they do hurt the people around them or the people that they claim to love the most. Is that you? Are you so stuck in your beliefs about yourself and in your denial of your need to grow for the whole rest of your life that you're willing to defend yourself even in situations where you know what you did was wrong? Are you that person? Or are you the type of person that says, no, I'm capable of growth? And growth is really hard. And growth is really uncomfortable. And growth means that I actually have to look at my actions and ask myself what they mean about me. And if they don't reflect who I want to be, then I have to be willing to change that. And that starts with telling the truth. Telling the truth to yourself and telling the truth to everybody else. Lying is hard. As an ADHD person, it is a very hard habit to overwrite. But you can start small. Be honest with yourself. Go look in the mirror and tell yourself who you are. Who do you believe yourself to be? And then after that, ask yourself, without lying to yourself, am I living a life that the person I want to be would be proud of? For me, I'm a Christian. So my perspective on lying is not only that it is, a character flaw that all of us humans stumble through and struggle with, is that it's a sin. And it took me a long time to realize that, sins in your Christian walk, you don't like convert to being a Christian and then like never stumble again. It doesn't happen that way. At least not from my belief system. Now, maybe your church or whatever belief system you were brought up in does believe that you can be converted, by Christ and then just do a complete 180 and never really struggle again. Or maybe they don't actually say that out loud. Maybe they just imply it. If you are in church and you say you're saved, nobody talks about sin anymore. And it's really sad because something as small as lying can be causing so many problems in your life. And it comes out in ways that you don't even notice. And for me as a Christian, I know that lying is a sin. Because it's a sin against God, and when I surrendered my life to Christ fully, and if you didn't listen to part 2 of ADHD in your 20s, you probably didn't hear my change of heart. And when I had that change of heart, it became a point of, I love God so much. I don't want to hurt him. And then on top of the fact that I don't want to hurt him, I realize that I'm stuck here on earth. And that means I'm stuck doing crappy things. But by the grace of God, he endowed me with the Holy Spirit that will help me to not do these small, crappy things. And I say small because they seem small, but they're not. They're all the same. The Bible says that sin is sin. It's all mud. It's all muck, quite literally. Some have larger piles, others have small piles. We're all just laying around and playing in the pig pen. The murderers, the adulterers, fornicators, liars, all of us. So when I look in the mirror, I don't just tell myself, not to be in denial of who I am and who I want to be. I also ask myself, who does God say I am? Does God say that I am still a sinner? No, he doesn't actually. Even though I will stumble and I will struggle with other sins throughout my life, he actually has called me saint, which means that at every opportunity that I have, I need to make sure that I'm reflecting the image of him and who he's called me to be and who he says I am. So who do you say you are? And if other people talk about you, who do they say you are? Would the image that they have of you be correct or not? When you recognize that you have to start living your life for something bigger than yourself, and that you have to be accountable to more than just your own accountability, you start to actually realize that that means you have to do things that your second nature would tell you not to do. Don't do that. That's dangerous. Don't tell the truth. That's dangerous. That could get us hurt. That could cause us pain. But ultimately, it's more important than your own comfort. It's more important than your own protection. I would stand up any day of the week and stand in front of my children, each one of them, and take a bullet for them. Straight to the heart, straight to the head, doesn't matter. Not meaning to be graphic, but it's the truth. Why? Because their life is more important than my own. Now, is that painful? Absolutely. It's going to hurt. I'll probably die. But it's more important. So lying, impulsive spending, any bad habits you have that you're hiding away, shoving them all inside yourself and telling yourself nobody knows what I'm struggling with, you are lying to you and you're lying to God. And even if you don't believe in him, he knows. There's nothing he can't see. There's nothing he doesn't know. So you can keep lying if that's who you want to be, or you can start setting the foundation to be the person that you want to be the person that's willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of truth, that's willing to be vulnerable and weak and even look foolish and maybe even look dishonest for a short time, because you have to go back and build trust with people that you've lied to and on a much larger scale. But is it worth it? 150%. 150%. The truth, telling the truth, being truly who you are, being true to your convictions and being true to God is always worth it, even at the cost of ourselves. That's going to wrap up this episode. I am so glad you listened. I hope that I helped. If you're struggling with lying, why don't we talk about it? That is going to wrap up this episode. And I'm so glad that we had the chance to talk about this. And I think it's so important. If this is something you're really struggling with, you're struggling with lying, I wanted to let you know that there is something that I've decided to start doing that totally makes me feel uncomfortable and a little out of my comfort zone. And that is mentorship. There's a lot of online coaches out there that do ADHD coaching. And I want to just specify that that's not exactly what this is. This is more of a mentorship. This is me mentoring you through your struggles and your interpersonal struggles with ADHD, not as a professional, but as a fellow ADHDer who has walked the road of struggling with our self-awareness, wanting to overwrite habits, finding ways to watch our growth and measure our growth in ways that help us to continue on. That's what I want to focus on. And I want to focus also on interpersonal relationships, something that I'm finding a lot of ADHD women struggle with. The logistics part of ADHD, that's definitely probably more for an ADHD coach, staying accountable, stepping stones for everything, laying out the plans, how to stay organized. It's not really what this is going to be. But if it's something that interests you, you can find the information underneath the mentorship tab on lacyestelle.com and also on anaddwoman.com. And I will also try to link it here in the show notes. So I would love to hear from you. There's a small fee, but you can do it either 2 times a month, up to 4 times a month. And if I get enough interaction with it, I would love to be able to offer some sort of group mastermind session so everybody can kind of get together and talk about the different things that they're utilizing and different habits that they're changing and how everything's going. Because my word, if there's anybody out there that understands the struggle of self-esteem or struggling with growth or struggling with decision making even, it's a fellow ADHD woman who has gone her whole life taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back and 4 steps forward and 2 steps back. I get it. And I really just want to come alongside you in this way. So I would love for you to consider signing up and let me help. I want to help in more ways than just talking to you on a podcast. So I will be talking to you soon. I hope you have a great rest of your week. That is going to wrap up this episode of an ADD Woman podcast. What did you think? How do you feel? I would love to hear from you. And if any of the things I just said are of interest to you, I'd strongly recommend that you check out the blog, which is hosted at lacyestelle.com. On there, I talk about all things ADHD parenting when you're an adult with ADHD as well, and how to deal with it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear what you think, and I'll be talking to you guys soon.